Hi. A few days ago I did a little unboxing of the Samsung SmartThings, and I hope you managed to see that. Now I had a few days experience in actually using it, so what I'm going to do is show you one or two practical uses, and then we'll try wiring up something and see whether it works. First thing to say is that the SmartThings connects up very easily to the hub. The only problem is that they tell you to go to a certain website. You go to the website and all that does is to tell you to download the app, which I'd already done. So that was about a minute of my life that I will never get back again. But never mind. The app looks a little bit like this. I have it on the iPad. It's not usually available for the iPad. You have to go and select iPhone apps if you want to get it. And as you can see, I have two things on it: the multi-purpose sensor, which I will talk about in a second, and the outlet. The outlet is not a mole, but it's an electricity thing. And if we go around here, you can see that I've plugged it in on the right-hand side. So it goes in the UK to a standard 30 amp fused outlet, and then you plug anything into it. I have plugged this light, just for the sake of argument, into it. So all we do is go to the app and press off or on, and there it is. We'll just do that again. There you can see. So saves having to go to the electricity or to the switch, and you have a perfectly reasonable thing. I'm sure that you can wire that up to anything. I've seen somebody on the web already saying that they've wired it up to their kettle so that they can press the little green knob, as it is there, in bed, and by the time they get downstairs the kettle has boiled. Well, isn't that progress? I'm sure there are lots of other interesting things. The thing I wanted to talk about though was the multi-purpose sensor. If I go to the booklet, let's see if we can see it here. It's this one here, the multi-purpose sensor, which is essentially a magnetic thing that you can put onto a door or a window. Now, I don't know about you, but I've got a burglar alarm system. I have everything wired up, so I don't really need it for that. So I thought to myself, what could I use it for? And I'll tell you about that in a second. Just a point though, when you do start using this, there's a little tab, and I can't show it to you on that one, but I can show it to you if I can open this box. Oh dear. Wonders of modern science. Open. How does that? Right, there we go. This is another thing which we'll talk about in a few moments, but you can see that little tab there, and you pull the tab out both on this and the multi-purpose sensor so that the battery makes contact. And what I discovered was, after I pulled out the tab, I couldn't get it connected. So I had to think about that, and finally worked out that perhaps I'd broken the tab. So when I opened it up, indeed there was a little bit of the tab remaining in there. So if you have a problem in starting the thing off, that will be the reason. Now let me tell you a little bit about this. This is my fridge freezer. Very sexy device, as you can see. The problem with it is that sometimes when you open up the fridge door, you can see that, and in fact it's worked there. The freezer has stayed open, and oftentimes I would come down in the morning and discover that the frozen stuff had thawed out, which was not very good. So the multi-purpose sensor is something that I thought could be useful for this. So what I did, and I have to climb up here to the freezer part, you can see that I have actually installed it with my favourite do-it-yourself thing, just to see whether it would work, sellotape, and it is on, as you can see there, on the door. And if we then go back down again, you can see that when I press the multi-purpose sensor here, it actually says closed. Can you see that? It actually says closed. Now, what happens if I open this up like this, give it a bit of a smash, we go there, and it actually says open. Now that's a thrill, isn't it? I've actually found a use for this, and I think it's going to be very, very good. Hopefully it will send me a message to say that the freezer is open. Better close it. There we are. It is now closed again. So the multi-purpose sensor can be used for a variety of different things. It's mainly designed for windows and doors, and I've seen some people have linked it to a burglar alarm so that lights flash and the siren goes off. For me, it's a lot simpler, connecting up to the freezer door, and I will do that permanently, not with sellotape, and that should tell me that the thing is open, which will be quite useful, I suppose, if I'm in this country. If I'm abroad and that happens, not much good. So let's have a look inside the box again, and we have two things that we have to still use. I haven't used them yet. This is, what do they call this? Let's have a look at the instructions again. Welcome to Samsung. We'll get there in the end. Right, this is the motion sensor. Again, with a burglar alarm, I'm not sure I need it, but I'm sure I will find a use. And again, we have the tab. Now I'm using this hand to hold the camera, so I don't know if I can just pull that out. Probably not, because I want to show you how easy it is. I'll tell you what, I will pull it out after I've off it, and that's now started. So we go to the app now, and we go to the screen, connect a new device. Press that. It's now looking for the device, and I wonder if that one thing found. How about that? A motion sensor. Tap to configure. I'm trying. Got to name it. It's interesting. Oh, I see. Okay. Well, we'll call it a motion sensor. We've done all that, and it tells you what to do. So, having set it up successfully, you can see that the three items that I have on the app at the moment are the motion sensor, the multi-purpose sensor, which is on the freezer, and the outlet, which I shall turn off. There you go. And the motion sensor is saying that it has motion, which is what it's designed for. And I'm sure I will work out something in the next few minutes to use it for. So there it is. It's showing no motion at the moment. I've set it up on a table outside. We are now going to go for a little walk, and I may need to reshoot this if it doesn't work, but I'm now just about walking past it, and look at that, motion. So that shows that the Samsung SmartThings is working really rather well. I'm very pleased with that, and I will probably set that up somewhere in the house where the burglar alarm system. One thing which I think is quite important to mention, this is the Smart Hub. If you're anything like me, a bit of a geek, you have lots of things plugged in to your computer and to your router. And this is the network cable that they supply, which I'll put over here. It's very, very short, and unfortunately, when you hook it up to your router, there's probably not enough space for you to then connect up the hub to the mains. So what I had to do was replace Samsung's little bit of network cable with a much longer piece, and then I could use the lead here out the door into an electricity point outside. So I just raised that as something that Samsung should think about, putting in a longer network lead. The mains transformer lead is perfectly long, but it's just the other one. The other thing I would also say is that in the instructions it says to work best, you should have it in the center of the house. Well, my router is actually at one end of the house, so that was a bit difficult to do. But then if your house is wired up, and this is worth putting into the instructions, if the house is wired up, like mine is, you could plug it in anywhere in the house into a network point. Problem is, I don't have any spare network points in the house, so just a little bit there for Samsung to think about. Cover. The other thing that I did a little bit of research and saw that you could use other lighting with it. It'd be quite useful actually if, rather than some of these devices or things that they've added in there, it'd be quite useful if there was a light switch, because then you could dim your lights and do everything. As it is, you need to use something else, and good old Samsung, I have just spent 50 quid on this little kit, which is the Philips Hue Lux. Strange name, Hue Lux. Oh, it's Deluxe, Hue Lux. Anyway, there it is. At the moment, it's got this sort of thread on it, on the bulbs, and I've ordered a little things that you can put on to change them to bayonet fittings, which I have here. And that will mean that I will be able to control the lighting in the house, or at least from these two bulbs, from anywhere in the world. And I can have them coming on and off at different times. And I can control it, most importantly, through Samsung SmartThings. So I think that's one for another video as soon as I get the bayonet fittings. But that's about it for now. This has been video 2 of the SmartThings from Samsung. I hope you've enjoyed it. It'll need a little bit of editing, I'm sure, but hopefully it'll be okay and you'll get some ideas. Bye.